Hey guys, me again with another YouTube video, and I want to make it so abundantly clear to you guys that this video is super crucial to the state of the channel itself, to the point where I'm gonna have to ask you guys to do me a favor. If everyone who watches this video watches the full thing all the way through, it would be a huge help to the entirety of the channel. I am going to basically get departnered if we don't have a whole bunch of people watching this, and that is ultimately not what we want. I really want to continue making Lego models and things like that, and the SMG-11 was funded by the channel itself, so I would really appreciate it if you guys were to kind of like help me out and just watch this video all the way through. So that we can get some view hours in, and that could really help with the channel. So thank you guys so much for listening. Without further ado, I would like for you guys to feast on the AWP Dragon Lore from CSGO. This was a pretty long model in the making, in the sense that this took a lot of hours to go through and build. All the pixel art is all hand done. All the shading and everything that you see, all the color picking has been done by me. Lego doesn't have exactly the colors needed, but a lot of it came from me, and a lot of the designs themselves were pretty difficult to do as well. Okay, gotcha. It's on this side. Interesting. It should be on this side. Oh well. That's a mistake that we can fix another time. This was such a large undertaking of a project. So if you guys want to see more CSGO skins like this, these really unique and rare CSGO skins that not a lot of Lego gun builders build, because ultimately you can't build this in real life. You can't find all the parts for it. Go ahead and share and like this video so that I can feel more at ease if I were to actually go through and make a whole bunch of more of these, because this was a big undertaking. So let's go ahead and start with just some basic overall size comparisons so you guys can get a sense of scale. Also, just a real quick shout out, the scope design is based off of Alan's custom Lego. It's not entirely his, because I've modified it here and there to make it more kind of just smoothed out in certain areas, but most of it is his. So for basic size, dimension wise, this rail up here is 3 studs wide. The barrel itself is 3 stud wide, though in some areas it gets a little bit wider. Through here it's a little bit wider, through here it's a little bit wider. The muzzle brake is just slightly shy of being 3 studs small. It's a little bit smaller than 3 studs. That's what I was trying to say. The cheek rest is 3 studs. The butt pad and main body of the gun are 5 studs. The grip area is 4. The trigger guard is 2, and the mag well is 5, and the magazine is 3 studs wide. The bipod up here is 4 studs and connects outwards to larger one. Back here on the bolt and the bolt inside the actual gun itself, it's 3 studs wide. There's just a little bit of side plate detailing going on. Anyhow, as much as the aesthetics really fit this model and they look really well, this model actually works as it should. It has all the necessary features, and we will slowly get into going over all of them. Starting here with the butt pad, this is a pretty comfortable butt pad. This was actually really difficult to make. Just as a quick little, this is how it was done. It was actually using these brand new pieces that Lego digital designer just got, and then some signage in green color. The cheese slopes on the back make for a pretty comfortable butt pad, and it's rounded in all directions as well, so that it has a nice polished look. Cheek rest up here is a pretty basic cheek rest. It's just a 3 stud wide using different slopes to get a different angle on both sides. Most of the pixel art is done by 1x1 plates with studs on top. And a lot of the detailing, these inset screws, we're using bracket pieces. These are the larger, newer ones. The bracket behind this piece that I just pulled out right here is the larger 2 high ones. So a little bit of detailing going on through here, through the dragon's tail, and this little bit of kind of like a vine or ivory or something coming up. I really tried in this gold stripe right here. I really tried to get the diamond shape going, and I was not able to do that, unfortunately. And I'm kind of sad that I wasn't able to do it, but I really did try. And a lot of the solutions that I was coming up with ended up sticking way out to about here. And I was not liking that. So I decided to keep it just a straight line down. As you can see here, we make a transition down into 4 studs for the grip itself. And a lot of the outside of the grip is actually built using sideways techniques so that the inside of the grip can accommodate the pixel art for the dragon itself and not feel too skinned down. As you can see, we have a large thumb hole here, and because of how the grip is built, it kind of makes this octagonal feeling on your hand, so it just doesn't dig into your hand. This should be overall a pretty comfortable grip. Down here at the bottom, we used actual angled pieces like so that it just kind of formed the angle that the rest of your fingers would be resting on. I think you would get a little bit of your pinky down here on this one, but not too many fingers down here. Just ultimately would feel comfortable though. The trigger guard is actually built using some upside down techniques to accommodate the rounded and smooth incorporation and look. The trigger itself is inspired by Neat Dog's op trigger. His was actually the L115 actually, but this is kind of inspired by him. So this is the look that he does. This is the look that I decided to go with as well, because it ultimately looks really good, especially at a slight angle. The magazine release does in fact work. If we take and grab it here, we can push it like so, and that will drop the magazine itself, because the magazine has a tab. Go ahead and duplicate this on down so that you guys can see what's going on. That last bullet wasn't connected for reasons we'll get into later. So here's the magazine. It is a 3 stud wide magazine. It's mainly built using sideways bracket pieces like this. The bullets are held in via just little studs off to the side. I actually ended up deleting the one down here that was holding this bullet on to copy and paste a bullet over somewhere else later on in the model, so that's the reason it's not down here. The magazine locks into this little groove right here, or the magazine catch locks into this groove right here, and this entire magazine is held at an angle using just kind of basic plates right here. I think this magazine is overall one of my favorite things about the model itself because of this. This up here, it kind of represents the feed lips of the actual magazine itself, and it looks really cool from a side profile. I really like how this turned out overall. Currently holds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 total shell casings. Should just back this up so that the magazine locks into place. And a unique feature is that the bolt itself, which should be a group. How do I? Okay, just in general, if you're wondering what that is. If we do these right here are in clear. They could, of course, be replaced with the darker green, but I did like the overall view that being able to see the actual casings themselves provided. So that's the reason I went with those overall. Sorry I got quiet for a second. Someone was coming down the hall, and I didn't know if I had to pause the recording or not, if they're going to talk to me. But there's a really unique feature about all of that we can get into as we talk about the bolt. So the bolt is pretty simple. There's actually a surprising amount of detail in such a small 3-stud wide area. This right here is actually the firing pin indicator. This will actually pull out, and then when you pull the trigger, it will slam in to shoot off a cartridge. Right now, it's in its default position because the gun is not cocked. If the gun was cocked, this would be sticking outwards. The gun also has a 3-position safety, and that's pretty crazy to hear because when you usually think of 3-position safeties, you usually think of something that has a full auto capability, and this is obviously a bolt action rifle. But what I didn't know is that in this position, the bolt is locked and the trigger is locked. In the second position, if I can find it, why aren't you? Maybe I just clicked on. In the second position, which is out like this, the trigger is locked, but you can still cycle the bolt. And then in the third position, which goes the other direction, the bolt is unlocked and the trigger is unlocked. So that is your firing position. And that's not something that I actually knew. For the sake of just things, I'm going to have it like this, but just know that you can't action the bolt when it's in that position. The bolt handle itself locks into the gun itself, so it won't just open randomly. It's pretty simple to unlock. You just pull up like so. That will open up, and then if you come and you click on this, you can actually, did not mean to do that. Click on this. I didn't add those to the group. Just, yeah. Technical difficulties. I forgot that I went back and I modified how this actually works. So we're going to fix that. This, of course, will spoil what's going on up here. Alright, so now, did not mean to do that. We can grab the bolt and we can cock it back like so. So you can pull the bolt out to about this distance. You could actually pull it back further, but for the sake of this video, this is where we're at. You can see that there's the shell in the magazine is actually exposed here. And I think something really, really cool is that the actual shell interlocks with the magazine. So you can see that just the very tipsy top of this shell is actually on the inside of the magazine. And I think that's something just kind of unique because of just like the idea that I could basically almost make this magazine working and feeding. And I think the more unique version and thing about that is that you can actually chamber a round in this gun itself. You can see here that we actually have a bullet chambered right now, and it's right on in the outside of the barrel. And I think that's just a really unique feature. And then obviously, if you close the bolt, it stays in place. But if you open the bolt, drop the magazine, it would fall out. And I think that's something really unique about this model itself. And I'm really happy that I, and was able to include that feature in the model. So we're going to place that back and lock the bolt back in to place. Go on, keep on going, keep on going. Boop, just like so. The bolt handle itself is actually pretty interesting. This was a challenge, but once it hit me how to do this, it was pretty simple. This uses one of the brand new upside down balloon pieces, which obviously can take a lightsaber rod. So I literally just used one of those, and this is the end result, and it looks really, really nice. Because it's not too big of a bolt handle, but it's not too small at the same time. It's nice and rounded. It's going to feel comfortable, and that's fantastic. Excuse me. Up here we have the scope itself. I tried to get as much detail into the scope as possible. I did some of the checkerboarding in other parts of the weapon, the barrel, on top of the barrel on this side, and then in the back here, but the checkerboarding on the scope would have just been a whole nother level of detail that would have been pretty difficult to do. So I decided to leave it out, but I did most of the striping that you can see on the scope itself, and then I did some smoothing out of the overall dials on the scope itself as well. Like I said though, this is Alan's custom Lego scope. It's just been modified slightly to fit the overall aesthetic of this weapon itself. You can see the crosshairs, like so. So one of my more favorite things. Some of the modification that I did to the scope actually involved deleting out the bases. And the reason for that is because I wasn't originally planning on making the scope for the weapon itself, but then I decided to do so because it fits the overall aesthetic of the rifle, and it's not a Dragon Lore without the scope. So I originally had iron sights on it, but I really liked these iron sight design that turned out. So I decided to keep them and have the ability to aim down your iron sights while the scope is on. So you can see you have 2 red dots in the back, or 2 red rings in the back, and a red dot in the front. So this uses the rings pieces from Lord of the Rings, and this uses the lipstick piece that I generally speaking use in most of my other models. A lot of this portion up here is actually built upside down to accommodate these 4 stud long slopes, just to give it a nice good look. Like I said before, most of this body is built 5 studs wide. Once we get up into this portion, this is built using sideways bracket pieces, and this is just a pretty standard piece in itself. The barrel is actually pretty new. I found this piece while digging through looking for other pieces. It's got grooves in it, so when you put them all together, they look really, really cool. And it's exactly 3 studs wide, so it fits in this overall space that I have allotted for it to fit. These diamonds were a pretty big pain to do, and even now, some of the pieces that I used were actually deleted out of LDD because of errors. Like that piece that I just put back in was having an issue. I believe the 2 jumper plates that go in this model are also having issues, and then this piece right here is having an issue as well. There's just a whole bunch of issues with the pieces right through here. Just know at one point in time in live stream, all of this was connected as it properly should have been. The barrel continues out to this section. This was a really difficult section. This is basically an octagonal building section in just slightly over a 3 stud wide space, and then it has a small gentle fade into the orange that you can see at the end of the barrel itself. I really wished that these were closer together, but I was having a whole bunch of difficulty trying to even remotely conjure how I was going to do this in a 3 stud wide space. So I'm pretty happy with how this turned out in the end. I think this was an okay way to go about it. Front sight's pretty basic, just front sight. Muzzle brake's a slightly different muzzle brake than what I usually do. It's still at the 45-degree angle, but I've added an extra plate And then with that extra plate, I was able to use these rail pieces here to kind of add this angle almost. It looks better overall. It has the large port that you can see on the picture. Scooted on back, we have the actual bipod itself. This is a non-working bipod. It does not work. Someone is calling me, and it's a number that I don't recognize, so thank gosh. I repeat, this is a non-working bipod. The springs on the bipod itself on the model actually come up at an angle to this point right here. I actually have a piece that I had envisioned using for that. It's just a super awkward piece to use in LDD, so I settled for doing this kind of design here. Where's that piece at? I don't know where it's at, but it looks exactly like this, except it kind of stretches out like a normal spring would, almost. Some of these angles were pretty hard to do, and they didn't exactly close up. I'm looking right here in particular. They didn't exactly close up really well, but I'm pretty happy with how the detail turned out. I was able to get a lot of detail in just such a small space, and I'm pretty happy with how this has just all come together. And overall, probably one of the best models I've ever made. This is, by and large, one of the best models I've ever made to date. And I think even now, there's still a huge chance that I could improve upon this. Obviously, the next thing would be to incorporate a lot of the ops working features. So the folding stock, in particular, that would be the next thing to work on. But other than that, I think this is, by and large, one of the most perfect models that I could ever make. Please, guys, if you like this video, share it with someone that you know. We really need to get to 4,000 watch hours. I'm pretty far off still. I think I'm 400 hours away still, and we have until February 20th. So if everyone watched this video all the way through that sees it, it would be really, really helpful. So please, guys, just kind of help me out here, and let's get this video. Let's get this video out there. Let's get everyone to view this, and if you know anyone in the CSGO community, share this with them so that they can see it and they can see one of their favorite weapons has come to life, and better yet, one of the favorite skins has come to life as well. Please, guys, remember to comment, rate, and subscribe for more videos similar to this one. Check out my website at bluejaymeister.wizzy.com, and check out my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for social media updates as needed. See you later. Peace.